Hi and welcome to day 26 of Inktoberfest. My name is Sharon Smith and I'm going to show you some techniques using alcohol markers with the colour Hive ReMARKable inks. These are specifically for colouring. So I have two colours. I have Eclipse Black ink and I also have Fog, which is a warm grey but a light grey. So my techniques today are going to be using these. First, I'm just going to do some simple colouring of this little bunny here, stamped in the Eclipse Black ink. I am also going to show you how you can use the Eclipse Black to do heat embossing. You can just catch the shine there in the camera. Next, once I've finished these, I will be moving on to a mini Slimline card using Fog ink. This technique is no line colouring. They are very pale lines, but it's not as much as you would if you'd stamped it in the dark. And then my last technique is going back to the Eclipse Black and showing you how you can use markers to colour over an image without smudging it. So I'm going to do this little scene here. Also, as you can see, Sentiment's are great stamped with the Eclipse Black ink as well. It's very crisp, doesn't smudge. Okay, so moving on to my first technique. And for this one, I'm going to be using the ReMARKable Eclipse Black, which, as it says on the label, alcohol marker colouring techniques. It's perfect for some Copic markers this time. And I'm going to start by putting some white coated cardstock into my mister. We use coated cards so that the ink doesn't bleed through too much, and you need some coating to hold it on. Grovehill Farm stamps with this little bunny in a little headscarf. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how you can heat emboss with her. Picking her up with the lid of my misty and then applying the ink directly to the stamp, making sure I've got full coverage, and then stamping it onto the card. As I was saying, the coated card helps alcohol markers to blend because it holds the colour on the surface to allow them two colours to blend together. Here I've got some clear embossing powder. You have to be fairly quick, you have to get it on there straight away, but as you can see, I'll just heat it up with my tool and there it goes. You can see it's starting to change. This gives almost a line, a raised line, so that your colouring doesn't go over the edges. Great if you're one that can't colour in the lines, which is probably me at times. So I'm just putting the card back on there, and I'm going to show you now how you can use it with alcohol markers. So again, making sure I've got plenty of ink on the stamp, pressing it down onto my paper, give it a quick smush with my smusher, and again another crisp stamped image. I'm going to dry this off with my heat tool just because, like I said, for the heat embossed it does stay wet a little bit, but then once it's dry it will not smudge with your markers. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing a bit clearer. I'm using 3 warm grey tones just to colour her body and her face. Quick colouring because I'm more demonstrating how you can colour over details and it will not smudge. you'll still get your nice crisp black edges and your colours will remain true to what you've put down on there. Moving on to a mid-tone, just pulling the darker tone out a little bit, rounding off her face to give her some shape. And then I'm going to take it down and do the same with the body, just pulling that colour out. I'm not too fussed about how I'm colouring the body because, as you saw from the image, I have actually put her into a frame on the card, so you won't see the bottom of her body. And then finally blending that out when I've got the right nib to give her some more shading. The lighter tone makes her face look as though it's rounded. Pulling the darker colours out of the body. She is so cute. There's actually glasses in the stamp set as well that you can put on. They're great if you then add some little glossy accents to the eyes. A little pink nose and some pink inside her ears. She's a cutie. I'm not colouring the other image in, I was just demonstrating how you can use the embossing powder with the same ink for that one. Now moving on to a headscarf, I'm just going to use 2 different shades of green just to give a headscarf some dimension around the knot and the way that it's tied. The llama in this set is adorable as well. I don't think there's an image within the set that I don't like. So there you go, just adding the final green on there. And there she is, all ready to be fussy cut and go on the card. So again, just showing you how that embossing powder has dried on there. On to the next card, which is the mini Slimline. For this one I'm using the fog ink. I'm going to demonstrate how you can use this ink for no line techniques again, because it doesn't smudge when you go over the lines. So I'm going to add a piece of Slimline cardstock. Again, I'm using alcohol markers, so it's a coated cardstock. Making sure I'm getting it straight. I don't want a wonky flower. I'm just going to put the stem in there just so that I can position my flower head correctly. I'm not going to stamp that just yet. Just twisting it slightly and picking it up with my misty lid. So the fog, like I said, is a nice warm grey tone. And when I lift this up, you'll see it's a lot lighter than what the Eclipse Black ink is. So I'm going to use Copic Markers again, and I'm just picking 3 shades of pink. And as you can see, I'm actually colouring on the lines there because I don't want them to stand out like you would with a image stamped in black. Just going around the bottom of all the petals to give them some dimension. Colouring that bottom part there because I don't want the grey showing there. And then adding the darker colour to the back petals because they're furthest away. They won't have so much light on them ones. Could almost be a water lily this if it opened up. I think it's actually a rose, but So going in with my mid-tone there, I'm just pulling that darker one out, making sure I've coloured on all the lines so they're not as prominent. Colouring is my stress reliever. I could sit and colour all day. So there you go, just pulling that dark colour out a bit, making sure the lines are covered. And then last but not least, I'm going to go in with the palest of my pinks. As I started to colour this, I realised that the pale one was a bit too pale. I will show you how you can fix this in a second. Needed to colour all of it first. So yeah, as you can see from the big petal, the pale pink's a bit too light. So what I'm doing now is tip to tip. So I've got my mid colour pen and I'm touching the nib of my lightest colour, which gives me a in-between colour to drag out and take away the starkness of that really light colour. So I'm going back in my misty now, take off the flower and add the stem. There's lots of different words in this set that can be used with, and quite a few flower heads that they can be used with as well. So again, I've stamped that with a fog ink because I didn't want it to stand out too much against the flower. And there you have it. You can still see the lines there. So if you wanted to go paler with this ink, you can do that also. I'm going to show you how. So I'm going to get another piece of cardstock, add in the flower first. I have cleaned it by the way. And then another piece of cardstock, just a scrap piece for this. I'm going to ink the image up with the fog ink again. I'm trying to get it on camera here. Zoom out a little bit. So using the fog ink again, stamp it onto the scrap card, remove that, and then stamp it again. And as you can see, you get a paler impression, which would make it lighter. So going back to the Eclipse Black, and again I'm going to show you how you can colour over this time with the image that I'm using. So I've got the Easy Winter Watercolour Scenes, and I'm going to use this tree scene here. It is a silhouette scene. Great for watercolouring techniques, but I'm going to use it with the Copic Markers now. So again, piece of coated cardstock, and I'm placing the stamp in there. Don't worry if it picks your cardstock up. With the Misty, you can always position it carefully again. So making sure I've got plenty of ink on that stamp, because I want a nice dark silhouette. So making sure the trees and the frame are all well covered. And I'm going to use my smusher again because I need pressure to make sure that that fully stamps onto that cardstock. So I'm just spending a bit of time making sure. And there you have it. So like I did before, I am going to just showing you a close up there. I'm going to just run my heat tool over that. Leave the stamp where it is because we're going to use it again. So just running my heat tool over it just to dry it off. You could have heat embossed this with clear ink, with clear embossing powder. That would have looked great. But I'm going to show you how to get nice northern lights scene with some crisp black trees in the foreground. So there you go, rubbing my finger over, no ink is coming off there, so I know I can colour over it. And I'm actually going to colour over the images this time. So if this ink was no good for alcohol markers, I would have black streaks all over. So as you can see, no streaks whatsoever. Laying that green colour down, I'm going over the trees. I'll just pull in a little bit closer for you so you can see that there's no smudging at all. Another green, going a bit lighter this time. Trying to get a northern lights effect with that. Even paler. And look, light green, and there's not one bit of smearing or smudging of that black ink. This has become one of my all-time favourite inks for alcohol markers. So some nice dark blue for the blue sky. And bringing it down from the top as well. As you can, no smudging. I'm running along that frame with the marker and it's not dragging any black colour in from it. Just going to pull that out even further. Start to blend it in with the edges of the green colouring. Again, right over them trees. You don't have to worry about any smudging. And then a paler blue just to drag into that green to blend it into it. Northern Light. We live in Michigan and apparently the Northern Lights can be seen from the Upper Peninsula at times. Somewhere I would love to go and see at some point. And I'm just going to go back in with a green just to pull that in and blend it through. And there's my little scene. Now, because I've gone over them trees, the alcohol markers have dulled them off a little bit. So when I said I left the stamp in place, I'm now going to go back over with the ReMARKable ink. I was just checking I've got it in the right place there. So I'm just going to take that ink back over just to crispen up the image a little bit more. There we go. Don't worry about having ink on the blank bits of the stamp. These stamps are etched enough that any extra ink will not show. Look how dark them trees are. Stand out great against that background. Just add a little bit extra. I'm just going to put some little dots with a white gel pen and add some little stars in there. great to see how dark that ink is, making it perfect for doing silhouette images. There you can see closer up, no smudging and perfectly stamped trees. Thank you for watching. Here again is my 3 cards that I made. Hope you enjoyed what I've taught today and hope you come back for tomorrow's.